This is William Ury, the author of Getting to Yes with Yourself and other books on negotiation. And you are listening to Authenticity Radio with Slade Suter.
Hey, welcome. Grab a seat anywhere. No, we don't have any menus. The only thing we have today is the freedom to express who you truly are. We call it Authenticity Radio. You'll like it, don't worry. Let me go grab the host. He's got the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper. He's a good guy. Slade Suter.
And thank you very much for joining us today. This is Slade Suter on the morning edition. Today we have Angelo Ciliberti. And if you want to remember his name, he's like a celebrity. Joining us all the way from Boulder, Colorado, where I had the wonderful opportunity to meet up with him through a connection from Mark Azoulay. Angelo has studied at Naropa University, where he obtained his master's in psychology. And it's just not any master's, it's a contemplative counseling in psychology. And in his bachelor's, get this, people, he has a bachelor's in Japanese language and culture. Mm-hmm. So, Angelo, welcome to Authenticity Radio.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you with us. Because once we talked, we were discussing about the AIM House. And you, as I understand, are the clinical director of the Earl House under the AIM House.
That's correct. That's right. Uh-huh.
Okay, so tell us, what is the Ames House? And is that AIM or Ames when you're talking about both houses?
It's AIM. It's AIM,
okay.
AIM House. And we are a transitional living program for young adults in Boulder, Colorado. And really the design of the program is to help facilitate a transition from more of a primary treatment setting where some of the young adults have been to help really feel safe and secure and stabilized, to begin to address some behaviors and some thoughts and feelings that had gotten pretty destructive for them in their life. That can be a whole range of settings. Sometimes it's an RTC, like a residential treatment center. Sometimes it's a wilderness program. But they're coming from a primary setting where they've typically been for 1 to 3 months doing some very deep work. And as a transitional program, what we allow for is a space for them to shift from a very highly contained and supportive setting slowly over time back into the real world and into the kind of sometimes in the wilderness therapy, it's called the front country.
That sounds nice. I like it.
Yeah, being here and in the city, it's the kind of front country. So helping them typically over about 6 to 9 months to transition into a point of full independence where they would actually be living in the community independently.
Okay, so you create the space for this deep learning that they have gone through already to actually take hold. And you're accompanying these individuals along the way.
Exactly right. We're really helping them to integrate, I think, on a very deep level, some of what they began to learn and some of the realizations they began to really have about themselves and what was driving them in the past, as well as really helping the family as a whole, because we don't just work with the young adult, we actually work with the parents or the guardians and really help the entire system to do things differently and to heal from what's gone on in the past and to begin to really find new ways of communicating and just to really bring the entire family along in the process.
So when we're dealing with abuse, trauma, marginalization, and neglect, those are some heavy chips to be able to pass off and to be able to see yourself. And what is your philosophy? What is the Ames House philosophy?
Well, we really start off from a place of realizing that what people have gone through can be incredibly traumatic and incredibly painful. And people do heal and people do begin to see themselves in new ways. And it's one of the reasons why, neuroplasticity is one of my favorite words. I think that we have research now backing up that people can change their brains, their nervous systems can change and heal from all sorts of different things. So irregardless of what has happened for somebody in their past, I think we really hold as a firm belief that with willingness and with dedication and really in working with their relationships with the staff, their relationship with their individual therapist, their relationship with their mentor, that a tremendous amount of painful things that have gone on can really be addressed and worked through. And the young adults can rewrite their lives, can really shift a direction of some of what might have been happening for them.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of reflective work where they can see themselves in a new way. And so that's kind of like consciousness and awareness, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why mindfulness is really the foundation of our program. Having studied at Naropa in the contemplative counseling department, mindfulness was just something that was really heavily emphasized. And I think we see it as a way of beginning to take a step back from the immediacy of what we might be experiencing in the moment, take a step back to really be able to reflect and to kind of have a pause between what happens to us and how we decide to respond versus react. Mm-hmm. So you're really using mindfulness-based techniques, whether that's with a modality like DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, or whether that's in more of the individual setting where the participants are engaged in kind of narrative psychotherapy, and even in family therapy through a variety of different contexts, really working with the power of awareness to help participants, we call them participants, the young adults that are in our program, to allow them to begin to connect with themselves in a truer and deeper way than they may have ever experienced before in their life.
Well, Angelo, could you give us an example of a success story? Can you
Sure.
just examples of what we're talking about, of what the Ames House is capable of?
Sure. Well, I'm reminded, actually, this is a situation with a young man that I worked with where he had a tendency to just look very, very good on the surface and really tell people what they wanted to hear. And there was a way in which he could be very compliant on the surface of himself, but then really get very destructive with himself internally. There was a way that he would take his confusion, his feelings of not being adequate, his feelings of really struggling to have a sense of self from where he was coming from. He would take those things and he would turn it back against himself, and could be very destructive with substances and could be very destructive with different kinds of self-harming behavior. And over the course of, he first went to a wilderness program where he was really able to gain a lot of stability and traction underneath his feet, and enough of a pause to really gain some stability for us to begin to work with these things here at the transitional level. But when he came in, staff just immediately fell in love with him because he was such a nice young man and so kind to other people. But for the first period of time he was with us, he just had this tendency to always look very, very good on the surface. And he would say very nice things and tell everybody what a wonderful job they were doing. But there was something about it that wasn't fully integrated for him. And actually what began to happen over the course of the time that I was working with him and that he was also working with another mentor, he began to feel safe enough with us and he began to feel secure enough in the connection with us that he could actually begin to tell us things that were really frustrating for him about the program, about our relationships, things that he wanted to see change and shift. And I remember initially it was kind of jarring because we were always so used to this young man just telling us what amazing jobs we were doing.
Sure.
But as he got more real, and sometimes he would come in and he'd be quite upset and quite frustrated, it became an entry point for him to actually access what was really real for him in relationship with other people. And it really allowed us over time to allow him to integrate the parts of himself that in the past he was really feeling like he had to cut off and disavow and not allow to be fully expressed or to put words to in relationship with other people. And so over a period of time that we worked together, he really was able to be much more authentic, much more real in his relationships with us, with himself, with his parents. And actually, he was able to really shift his relationship with substances and became much more kind of organized in how he was able to function and show up for himself and for others.
Authentically kind to himself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Authentically kind to himself. And I think that there's a way in which, for him, he had been so used to protecting other people from his aggression and instead of directing it towards himself. So he was never really being real with other people, and he was also never really being kind to himself. He was so busy and preoccupied with attacking himself as a way of protecting others. So as soon as he felt the connection and the safety within the relationship with us, to express his frustration, his anger, his aggression, his confusion, his need for more closeness, his need for us to respond to him in a different way, and for us to work with him around that, to let him know his feedback was heard, to recalibrate how we were working with him, to really allow it to be a collaborative process, for the therapeutic relationship to really be collaborative in that sense, and for him to have the feeling that we weren't going to reject him, we weren't going to abandon him, we were going to stay with him, was an incredibly powerful and transformative moment in his life.
So is he terminated? Has he finished the program now?
He has.
And how is he doing now?
He's doing quite well. He left AIM House and he went on to graduate from school. He actually ended up graduating he graduated from University of Colorado and has continued to do quite well. So one of the cool things is that from time to time they stay in touch with us, the participants that have left, and we get to see how things continue to unfold. So I think that case, for me, has really illustrated a number of the core aspects that we really emphasize in the program, which is just the power of the relationship, of the therapeutic and the mentoring relationship to navigate whatever has been really hard and to use those connections that they have with us in the here and now to create a different experience.
So how many years has the AIM House been going? And you could tell us a little bit about the founders as well.
Sure. The AIM House has been around, I think, 14 years. The founders are Danny and May Conroy, and they both just come from a place of really wanting to provide young adults with a new experience. I mean, they just have, I think from their own personal lives, a very rich understanding of the need to provide something new for our young adults in some of the challenges that they're facing, whether that is in depression and anxiety, whether that's in, getting really addicted to screens and technology, whether that's with substance abuse. There's just a variety of ways that we're really seeing our young adults struggle during this transition from adolescence to adulthood. And they really created the AIM House program as a way to scaffold that process and to really scaffold it through relationship, through mentoring.
I love what you say, scaffold. It's an incredible image of building something around and supporting.
I think it's a good metaphor for what we do because it's also dynamic. It's not like somebody goes for a 30-day stint and then all of a sudden they just leave and they're done. With scaffolding, it allows us over time to pull back the supports or pull back the resources that a participant might be outgrowing and might no longer need, but to do that really conscientiously and to allow enough space for that to happen gradually so that it's not feeling so abrupt.
Okay, so the AIM House, is it only in Boulder at this time?
It is only in Boulder at this time, yes.
Okay, and so is it a possibility of being repeated in another part of the country?
I think there absolutely are those kind of possibilities. There are also other transitional programs around the country that I think do some things similar to what we do, not exactly what we do, but there are other transitional programs around the country. We just happen to be located in Boulder, which I think is just such a vital and alive and fun town for young adults. I mean, one of the things that we really emphasize is the importance of a young